It's on my mind right now. Open your Bibles with me to the Gospel according to John chapter 2. John chapter 2. And to quote a lyric, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere you go. Does that really bug you? Does that just, come on. They started so early, everywhere you go, all of this stuff. This morning I heard Elvis singing, and I wasn't tripping out or anything. It was over a radio, and it was Elvis singing, "Here Comes Santa Claus." And 10 years ago, I would have tuned that out. I would immediately have just gone, oh man, Elvis singing "Here Comes Santa Claus." What has that got to do with Christmas? One more thing to annoy me about this whole dang season. But I think I'm growing up. I know I'm growing up. I know I'm growing old, but that you can't stop that. But I'm growing up, and I'm slowing down. And as a result, I tend to think again. That's what the word repent means. I think again. I listen to the lyric. I listen to what Elvis sang, and he sang, "Peace on earth will come to all if we just follow the light. So let's give thanks to the Lord above, because Santa Claus comes tonight." You go, Elvis. I thought, what do you mean? That's, Elvis, Santa Claus, give thanks to the Lord above. That's Americana. Why does stuff like that, why did it used to bug me? And I'm going to put it past tense because you know what? Like I said, I think I'm growing up. When I was a kid, everything about Christmas was magical. I believed in Santa Claus. I believed in a lot of things that later on I found out that sure wasn't real. Everything was magical about Christmas. And then somewhere along the line, the magical turned to cynical. It started getting and it actually began to happen the more I got religious, the more I wanted to get back to the true meaning of Christmas. And yet, when I focused on the true meaning of Christmas, I found that everyone was so worldly. I wanted to Merry Christmas you right in your face. Merry Christmas, there. Does that make you feel bad? I hope so, because it's Merry Christmas. The more I became caught up in those things in my middle ages, somewhere, where did the ho, ho, ho go? It's like, this just bugs me. It's maddening. It's all marketing. It's mercenary. It's so worldly. God so loved the world. Well, I'm pretty... But my problem, it's one of my many problems, is the things that I see as troubles may be true enough, but I tend to focus on that. I focus on the phoniness. I focus on the glitter and say, oh, that's not what it's all about. And I read this section that we've been looking at for a few weeks, and we'll just read it through and talk about it a little bit more in the light of Christmas. But here in John chapter 2, we see Jesus doing some holiday house cleaning. He's going to the temple. He's going to the place where the Jews would worship, and he's going on the highest holiday of all, the Passover season, and he's doing some house cleaning. Let's just read it again, because some of you weren't with us last week. It says in verse 12 that after this he went down to Capernaum, he and his mother and his brothers and his disciples, and there they stayed a few days. And the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And the implication is that all of this blended family he's putting together went with him. And so they go up to this high holiday, the Passover feast there in Jerusalem. And it says that Jesus found there in the temple those who were selling oxen, sheep, and doves, and the money changers seated. And he braided a scourge of cords, and he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen. And he poured out the coins of the money changers, and he overturned their tables. And to those who were selling the doves, he said, "Take these things away. Stop making my Father's house into a market." And his disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for thy house will just burn me up. It'll consume me." This burning passion. So we've been looking at that for a few weeks, and of course reading through in its context. The most important thing, especially if you haven't been with us the last few weeks, is you got to read the stuff before. You can't talk about the Father's house until you see the Father's heart, and you got to go back to Cana and the wedding feast, and that taste and see the Lord is good, that wonderful pouring out of wine at a wedding. You got to taste and see that he's good before you'll have any inkling of what's happening here with this house cleaning. The Father's house is the place where his heart would have the wine flow most freely. It's ultimately a picture of the heavenly places, but it's the picture of what he would want to start happening in our hearts even now. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. But if you just read that story out of context, and I've been teaching the Bible for over 40 years, and I could come to a place like this, and maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I especially if I was particularly worked up about the worldliness of Christmas season and the holidays and all that sort of stuff, if I was in one of those modes, I could have read this passage and then passed on to those who read it with me my own bias. Because my bias at that point would be, look what Jesus did. All the marketing, all the merchandise, he cleaned house. Man, I'm just like Jesus. I kind of thought I was anyway. One of the worst things you can ever do to yourself is to take one of your troubles and problems and bad habits and then think you see it in Jesus and say, I'm just like him. I don't need to change. Look at him. He's ticked off. He sees what they're doing. There's no decorations. Get the oxen out. No selling, no marketing, no merchandising, no ho, ho, ho in my Father's house. It's no ho, ho, ho. It's holy, holy, holy. And you've just taken away from the Word of God. You've turned holy, holy, holy into ho, ho, ho. I'm cleaning house. This is really maddening. Jesus is mad. But he's not. And that's not the picture. That's not what we've been seeing. This is passion for sure, but it's a passion not for purity. It's a passion for people. He's making room for the people. Where the bazaar was going on, that was supposed to be the court where the Gentiles could come in freely. All this stuff was getting in the way of people that he wants to have come to him freely, to come to him knowing how the Father loves. And it's taken a few weeks, it does take a few weeks to think about that and process it, but that's the picture. So just now, in keeping with today, just understand that his holiday house cleaning here is not because he just loves a clean house and he wants purity. It's because he wants all of his people to feel at home. He wants all of his guests to come into the Father's house and to know that you're welcome, to know that you're wanted, to know that you didn't buy an entrance here, even if it's fair trade. No, it's not about trade. It's about grace. It's about giving. And that's the picture. And so he does his holiday house cleaning, and if you see it in the light of his heart, then you really start to see it. You cannot see this first scene until you taste the first sign. The first sign was the heart, the mystery of the abundant wine. Now, in my house, I can see it right now in my mind's eye. There's a dish towel, not a scary one that you have to use. This is one that nobody ever uses. It's one that it's hanging on the oven handle, and it says, Christmas is love with all of the trimmings. And my wife's an artist, and there's lots of trimmings. Lots of love, lots of trimmings, lots of stuff all around the house. And after 41 years of marriage, and all the memories and all the things, and so many, the tree just becomes a place where so many of the memories tend to collect. But it's all around the house, and I can walk around my home. In my mind's eye, I'm not even there right now, but I can walk around there, and in my mind, I can see all of these symbols of love. I can see all of these trimmings, and it's not just the dish towel that talks to me. All the different things, they talk to me. They say something about love and kindness and good memories, and it's kind of like the Beauty and the Beast story where you got the enchanted castle and all the lamps and clocks and everything talks to you. There's that kind of enchantment that love can make happen, not in a psychotic, weird sense, but in the deeper magic, in the deeper things of love. And I walk around that house, and it's magical. But I can do so in the house I grew up in. And it shows me now that maybe I am not just growing old, I'm growing up. not so cynical, a little more magical. Hearing that even Elvis singing about Santa Claus may have something to say to me, and learning to slow down and listen. And I find here, walking around this campus after we've been here 25 years almost, in a similar way. I walk around here, and this place talks to me. I look around, and I don't just see the things that need painting. I see the things that have been painted, and I remember the people that painted it. I remember the people that worked in different ways. I can still see Joe walking down the hallway and pouring Clorox. Everyone loved Joe except for the cockroaches. They didn't like him. He poured bleach down there. Once a month, he'd pour some bleach down and deal with that. And he was one of the only guys in my life that I'd let him kiss me, and it was okay. And so I can see people like that all around this place. And the place itself becomes precious to me. This season, I look around and I see all the love that went into all of these decorations, all the things behind me, all the things around the courtyard. It talks to me. And I had hoped for this Christmas something a little different than what's happening. It's funny how in life you hope for things, maybe even pray for things, and it doesn't work out that way, and then you got to adjust. And maybe you find, as I often do, that, what happened was better than what I'd wanted. This is the good thing. I had hoped that here in this service we would have a combined celebration with the Central Valley Church that's been went Christmas caroling earlier in the week in the neighborhood. Some of you went with them. And so I'd invited, and I'd hoped that we might have some sort of a combined thing. So I thought, that'd be fun. Let's just fill up the place. And it didn't work out. And I was a little disappointed. Dang. Because, oftentimes it's religious traditions, it's little things that they'll pass. Don't focus on little things, but it didn't work out the way I wanted. I wanted to see the place filled. I wanted to see more kids than just the ones we got painted on the walls out there. I mean, they're cool. They're well behaved. But I'm stuck with you guys. We got a few kids back there. Yay! But you know what? I'm glad it's you guys. In some ways, this is kind of like an empty nest sort of Christmas. And for me and my wife, we've learned to love the empty nest. When the kids and grandkids come, that's great, but could you just get out of our nest? And last year, my wife and I, for Thanksgiving, nobody came to our house, and we just ended up having just the two of us having Thanksgiving. And that was a lot to give thanks for. That was great. And so I'm enjoying the moment. I'm enjoying this present time. I'm blessed to be with you right now. And I remember, I don't know how many of you remember last Christmas, the service that we had here. I don't think I would remember all that well, but I always take notes. I have a journal of 40, 50 years of my life. I take notes. I always look back. It helps me to, now I remember. And last year in here, we had more people, of course. We had a Christmas choir and all the practice and work that went into the Christmas choir, and we had kids doing special things, not the kind of things you have to put them on timeouts for, but good special things, with the kids, and we had Tina and the beautiful piano playing that she would do, and Steve's wonderful singing, and all these folks that I so dearly loved, and I loved that time. And in my mind, I think about that, and I remember I got to stand off to the side last year, and I stood there and I said, let's unwrap the present, because right now, this is the present. Let's unwrap it. Let's appreciate this combination of people. In fact, I had already decided what I was going to talk about. Believe it or not, I do think about it before I get up here. And the greatest gift, the present for me last Christmas was Mamie was here. It's like, how did you get Mamie here? But they got here, 101, I guess, at that time, and they brought Mamie here, and she was seated back there. I thought, what a gift! The present is such a present. And I stood there, and we talked about it, and it was beautiful. And I didn't know at the time, we never know at the time, but I didn't know how hard this past year was going to be. I didn't know about the cancer diagnosis I would get. I didn't know about the people that would no longer be with us and the sadness that comes when you don't understand and things are changing and you wish they wouldn't change the way they're changing and all of that stuff that happens with life. But standing here a year later, remembering all of that, thinking how good it was then, I rejoice in what's now. This is good. It's been a good year. It's been a beautiful year. So many beautiful things have happened. And I rejoice in the present. And I relax in the present. You know, it's hard to rejoice until you first relax. You can't relax until you repent and think again and accept that, you know what, there's gifts for me right now that I might not have noticed. There's things that are floating in my ears that I might not even be hearing. I might be saying it and I'm not even thinking what I'm saying. But slow down. And then quiet, if this is a little bit more of an empty nester kind of time today. Amen. Silent night. Silent night is good for a nap. Silent night is good for sleep, and I appreciate sleep. I don't think of eternity as silent night. No. Eternity is going to be laughter and joy and like the wedding feast. It's going to be forever, but once in a while, just a silent night, a little nap. That's what we've got maybe a bit today, to reflect a little bit, to enjoy over in room 14. I do think that by next year, I'm not a prophet, but I do think you're going to see the kids off the walls, bouncing off the walls, all those things. And then you're going to say, what are all these kids doing here? So today, just chill. Just relax, because the work of God always goes on in ways that we can't plan. But we can work with him. I know I've got a few folks, there's always a few folks that come from out of town and visit. They maybe go to a Calvary Chapel somewhere else. They come here. They go back where they came from. They said, that ain't no Calvary Chapel. Why does this guy even have a dove? I don't deserve my dove anymore. I took it off long ago. People come, it's a blessing to have people just come and be here. I don't care where you came from. I'm glad that you're here. Of people who consider this your home church, I'm just curious, just for a moment. I don't usually do this, but for those of you who consider this your home church, even if you only come once a year, if you consider it your home church, how many of you homies are new to this church? That in this last year, this calendar year, this is your first year coming to this church here in Fresno. A couple of people. That's the new people. I'm not going to ask how many are old people. But I thought it would be something like that. And you know what? That has nothing to do with whether our church is growing or not. Growth in a living thing, a vine, a tree, growth is never measured in bulk or in numbers of branches. It's measured in fruit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. I'm not bragging, but I am growing. And boy, the more I grow, the more I enjoy my life. The more I enjoy the present, what God has given me. And I hope that's true for all of you. I hope that you keep growing. And if we, in fact, have more numbers at some point, then there's new problems and more opportunities to grow. But here Jesus on this holiday coming to the Passover, that's when everybody came. All the people who never seemed to have much faith in God, they all had to come for the Passover. And so here's this place, and rather than people be able to come near, you got all this bazaar going on, and here's Jesus cleaning house. Now, as I pointed out before, one more time, Passover is kind of like Christmas. I know that the Jews celebrate Hanukkah at this time, but that's a calendar thing. In terms of function, Passover is kind of like their birthday. Christmas is the birthday of Christianity because Jesus was born. Passover was the birthday of Judaism because they passed out of Egypt and all of that. And so it's a birthday sort of celebration like we're having right now. And it was tradition for the Jews that whenever you have Passover, you go through the whole house. There was a ritual. After a while, it's not even real. It's just ritual. But you go through the whole house and you look not for dust and dust bunnies and not. It was a specific cleaning. Get the leaven out. Find any leaven whatsoever. You got to get the leaven out before the Passover feast. Now, let me remind you of something that we spent weeks on. Maybe some thought it was too long, but I'm not sure that we learned it all. But when we were in Luke 12, I don't know how many weeks we were there, but I just kept going back to what I was seeing there in Luke 12. And it's that chapter that begins with, at this time, when there were so many people coming to Jesus that they were stepping on each other, Jesus said to his disciples, first of all, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. And then all the lessons we learned. But here's this scene, you can almost picture it in your mind. So many people coming, revival, revival. Not really. So many people coming that they're trampling each other. They're stepping on each other. Oh, man. And Jesus said to his disciples, first of all, if you want to follow him, you have to hear this kind of stuff first of all. Watch out for something. Not them out there, but something in here. Watch out for something inside of you that's like leaven. It's very subtle, very small. It'll puff you up. It'll build you up in ways that it's called hypocrisy. Jesus was very specific. Watch out for hypocrisy. You know, a little leavens the whole lump. Within you, within a community, watch out for it. That's what Jesus said. This is not my preacher talk. This is the loving Lord. This is Jesus saying, don't be afraid of your Father. Don't be afraid of the one who knows every hair on your head. I'll tell you who to fear. There's one who can make hell right inside of you. Watch out for the leaven. Be afraid of the things you can work within your own heart, especially in a religious setting. The Pharisees did it. And in a word, Jesus said hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is one of the hardest things to see. As far as I can see, we have one of the most straightforward, what you see is what you get, whether you like it or not. We are who we are. I love that. I like that. I think that's a wonderful thing. It's not good for marketing, but it's not a market. It's the Father's house. And I don't know that there's a whole lot of hypocrisy that happens here, but that's just me. I don't know how much hypocrisy is still at work within my heart. But I know who will help me, and that's Jesus. Because, man, I don't want any hypocrisy happening within me. Hypocrisy is one of the hardest things to see because it's the mask that we wear. It's the thing we keep in front of our face because we don't want anyone else to really see us, and we can't really see ourselves. And we see through that mask because we've cut eye holes out, and we see through it, but we don't see it. And where in my life is there something where I'm still not facing who I am and I'm just putting on this facade and it's about pride and it's about religious self-righteousness, and where might that be? The best advice you can get is always from Jesus, and Jesus says, ask me and I'll help you. You see his passion here to get the leaven out in his Father's house. That's a useful tool for you today in your prayers and in your thoughts for the rest of today. Lord, show me. And he'll show you. He'll help you deal with any of that stuff inside of you. For me, many of the masks, I didn't even know they were there until finally it became obvious. Saw something in a mirror, saw something in my brother or sister, saw something in people who were a little bit like me, and yet so different. Sometimes I learn the most from religious folks of a whole different religion. But I saw the way they thought, and I realized I'm thinking the same way in my own way. And I'd read about Jesus, and Jesus isn't that way. And I used to think that I was so much like Jesus. Jesus is like me. He's angry. He's cleaning house. He's going to make things pure. No, his passion was not for purity. It was for people. So I know for me, I don't know how many masks remain, but I want them all gone because it doesn't help me. But Jesus will help you. And that's just an important thing to think about. Jesus will put the ho, ho, ho back into holy, holy, holy. If you don't have the ho, ho, ho in holy, 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 all you have is lee, lee, lee. And who wants just lee, lee, lee? I'll quit. So just understand this as a practical point. If you're anything like me, God bless you, God help me. But if you've in any way gone from magical to cynical, understand this. It's not the holiday trappings, the worldly holiday trappings, the religious holiday trappings. It's not the holiday trappings that trap you. The trap's in here. It's somewhere inside. That's where the spider lurks that'll just suck the life out of you. It's the stuff that the Pharisees couldn't see. And Jesus loved them so much. Using words, doing things, startling things at times, just because he wanted them to see. He wanted them to enjoy the Father's house. They're like the older brother standing outside. I'm not going into the party. My son, come in to the party. So here's Jesus preparing a place. And if he seems a little angry in this story, it's only because he's that passionate. Not passionate about purity, he's passionate for people. He is angry at anything that would keep you from him. He wants you to come to him. And I think I'm slowly learning and seeing this more and more, even just this last week. Things I've prayed and thought about so long. And then suddenly I see, oh, I've been talking about that, but why wouldn't I see it, how that applies in this situation? And I promise you, when I see more, I'll share more in the months and years ahead. But in a nutshell, coming from a nut, it's not about the Christian market. It's not about the real estate market. It's not about the Better Christian Denomination Business Bureau or any version thereof. When I say it, I'm talking about the kingdom, the body, the beloved. What it's about is relationships, personal, individual relationships, love and laughter and joy and gladness, the things we've had with folks like Jose and so many others. It's sharing those things together. Jesus is preparing a place here at the beginning of his ministry. You guys know what's going to happen at the end of his ministry. He's going to be in an upper room with these folks. In John 14, he says, don't let your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Believe in me. In my Father's house, there are many dwelling places, and I'm going to prepare a place for you. It's what he was always doing, still doing, preparing us for the place, preparing a place for us. Now, I'm going to close with something, but I am going to close. And I may start going all Bruce on you. And I don't think I have a bloody nose. I hope I don't. But just as a final point of illustration and observation, things I can't plan, but they happen all around. I went to Joe's house on Monday. I'd never been to Joe's house. So I went with Jim to Joe's house. Jim had been there. Jim offered, he'd seen him last week. He thought, Joe just doesn't seem like he should be home, or maybe you can give him some advice because of all my background in home health. And yeah, of course, please. So on Monday, I was so glad to have Jim as my guide. We're going to Joe's house. Let's go see Joe. And I had Jim to lead me, and I thought, this is great. He's been there before. He's got a smartphone. He's a smart guy. And he got us lost. Too far this way, too far that way, not far this way. I'm pulling over the side road, looking at the smartphone again. And we laughed, and we had fun. To me, that's the way that I keep from going all Bruce. I get back into the joy and the laughter. And we, I would rather be lost with Jim than know where I'm at with anyone else. I know where I'm at. I know where I stand. I know where I'm going. Yeah, but do I really even want to be with you? I'd rather be with a friend and say, we're lost. I don't know. And so we did that. We parked the car. And then we got out of the car. We went out on foot. And we got lost even more. On foot, we got lost. Didn't even have a smartphone to help us get lost. We went out there and we found that some of these complexes can be complex, and they all look the same. They got a courtyard and a pool, and I thought Joe's house was here. And when Joe's house was there, and finally, we got to Joe's house. And again, the joy and the laughter, spend some time with Basha and Joe, and you know, like old times in so many ways. I'd been to see Mamie earlier in the morning, and so I could pull out my phone and show a little video of Mamie at 102 singing, you know, He Walks With Me and He Talks With Me. And he showed that to Joe, and he was smiling, we were laughing, and Basha was sharing about how when Micah Chaffin was just like a little 2-year-old, you know, and Joe and Basha were taking care of him in one of these classrooms, and he sits on the, and Micah got married this year, you know, not a teen marriage. He's a grown-up guy, but they remember when he was like 2 years old, and he's putting on his sunglasses, and I'm cool to the other kids in the class, and you know, the fun memories, and of course Basha and Joe, Basha living with Mamie, and the long connections, and then talking about new friends and them sharing how David and Irene Flores from the CVC church had met them and had a number of things in common. They've been visiting him, they've been driving him, helping him, taking places. I'm thinking, wow, isn't that cool how these relationships, old and new, being forged? And so, you know, like old times, we laughed a little bit as best as you can, because Joe was pretty sick. But it was kind of like old times when he'd sit right there. You know, he kept falling asleep when I was talking, you know, and it's like, just like one of my Bible studies. But he was sick. He should, as nice as it is, no place like home, it was not the place where he should have been at the time. And I was glad that his son was coming a little bit later. I'm glad that his son saw the situation a little bit later and called 911. You need to be in a hospital. You know, you're a great guy, you're a heroic guy, you never complain, you never want to say I'm sick, but I'm telling you, you were sick. You shouldn't be heroic in this situation. Just go get some help. You've helped so many, go get some help. And I was really glad when Jim could text me later and tell me, hey, Jim got admitted to the hospital and good. But before I left, I said to Joe with full conviction, knowing it was true, I'm going to see you in a better place. And I thought better place would be I'd come this week and I'd see him at a hospital or a rehab center or something like that. But I knew that if it wasn't there, it'd be I'm going to see you in a better place. And I said that with a surety, and sure enough, it's true. I'm going to see him in a better place. Right now, this is the present. It's not like last year. It won't be like next. But this is a gift. Whether you're visiting, or whether you feel like this is home, I hope you know the Father's heart. Taste the first sign. Go back to the first story. And then you'll understand this first scene. He's passionate because he cares so much for you. We're in a good place right now. This is great, but we can't stay. Things change. Life goes on. But I'll guarantee you this, we're all going to be in a better place. If we want to. We'll all see each other. Even if we see each other here in this room next year, we're going to see each other in a better place if we want to let the Lord work, because it's always in here. I want to be a better person so that I can be in a better place. Even if I'm sitting in the same situation, I want to see it from a different angle. Being in a better place starts in the heart, starts with him. He will go, he's passionate to do this work within you. He loves you. He loves you so very much. It's more than magical. So I quoted Elvis, or actually Gene Autry wrote the song. Let me leave you with Nat King Cole. So I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. In Mamie's case, 102. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you.
Nothing can stand in our way. There's none to press charge, none to condemn, and nothing now can separate. So what shall we say? With God now before us, I'm free. What shall we say? With God now before us, I'm free. What shall we say? What shall we say? With God now before us, and nothing can stand in our way. There's none to press charge, none to condemn. Nothing now can separate. So what shall we say? God now before us, I'm free. What shall we say? God now before us, I'm free.
What shall I